Now, what we have come here is to explain you our journey about how we have gone about to adapt and adopt GraphQL and GraphQL Federation. So, first, my name is Balvinder Banjadar. I have 2 decades of experience. I've worked in HR, oil and gas industry, mortgage, consulting, federal space, and of course retail now from past 5 to 6 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Anil Gatal and I'm the technologist and the strategist. I've been working with the dynamic organization right now to perform digital transformations across the industries, retail, supply chain, and energy sector. At Walmart, I have a privilege of leading an architecture for dynamic organization with 600 professionals, and we work together with multiple initiatives and we devised multiple solutions. And it was pleasure partnering with Balvinder on platforms, and we built platforms for multiple products. The purpose for which we are here is about our super app journey, which is a Me at Walmart, and a unique platform behind it. And that's where Balvinder and I partner.
So, yes, the title here clearly illustrates that Federated GraphQL Gateway, and mostly a catalyst for digital transformations in Walmart stores and associates. Let's be very picky there, right? So what we have done is we have empowered stores and associates use cases, capabilities, which will help several associates who work in store to be able to use applications efficiently, but not necessarily that we build those capabilities, but what lies behind these capabilities is powerful platforms, right? And GraphQL and Apollo specifications and whatever has come to us from them has actually helped us to have it as a catalyst for our development, right? That's the theme of this presentation, right? The theme here is leadership and how do you use a tool, how do you use a framework with 2 people sitting with different roles, I being a director of software engineering, an engineering leader, and he being a chief architect. How do we leverage the platform offerings which we have available? So these are the topics we'll be talking, common challenges for large app ecosystem, domain encroachment problem. Please make a note. You will love what is there here coming, right? And then schema stitching and manual orchestrator. I'm pretty sure people would have heard a lot about orchestrator, stitching and other things, right? Journey and governance. This is a super cool topic we are going to talk about. And then governance, stewardship and scenarios, especially this bromance led to building something which is going to talk about stewardship and then the governance. Accelerating adoption, like everyone talks about tools, will not show you those complex super graphs with so many annotations here. We'll talk about what works, right? And then GenAI to rescue and the other things which are definitely going to get interesting. Every retail is powered with several capabilities. When the store has to operate, that means the people in the store have to work. They work because they have to serve the customers, right? Let it be they want to quickly look up item information or look up associate profile or the work schedules of associates or do health screening. This is an important thing from the time COVID has come, that you should be able to quickly enable people to do health screening or their time and attendance or their payroll or some kind of alarms or just get messages to their inbox or inventory management or a lot of functionalities drive. Now there is endless things which can actually make a retail store become very powerful. Important thing is we have several apps. One of the apps, which is Me at Walmart, is one which helps bring these all capabilities together and empower associates to be able to make a good operation scenario take place in the organization. Right? That's the public link, public reference link here. And the story goes on where the Me at Walmart, which is basically, collection of several of these capabilities, how we applied GraphQL and GraphQL Federation. This is a continuous journey. We have gone about to do good work here. And then how this particular app now has, which is a super app, has a proper GraphQL gateway, and then how things are working and progressing, right? So I will leave now Anil to talk some architectural aspects, which are, some common challenges of large ecosystem, right? We'll get to go to where we have used Federation, but before that, some limelight on some of the architectural principles. Go ahead, Dan.
Yep, thank you, Balvinder. So to start with, basically, we have seen our application, which is a large ecosystem of application. And the second thing, we saw our vision to make as a one single super app and integrate all these applications. So these applications previously were built to solve specific business use case. As you can see, it's like there was an item, there was a scheduling, and all these applications were separate application that associated was used to flip through it. So now we are trying to vision that into a one common app, which is a super app, that is the architectural proposal. So while integrating these applications, we saw, you can think about these as a kind of a multiple plates you're spinning on your fingertips, and one plate to crash as soon as you turn your back, right? What are the other challenges which you see from there? The major one of the challenges which we see is basically the data fragmentation issues, right? Data is sitting in the silos, and it's very difficult to get the holistic picture of the data. Second problem important there is the orchestration complexity, right? So the orchestration complexity occurs because there is a multiple disparate APIs and duplicate data served through every endpoints. So that creates itself as a complexity behind it if you're visioning as a one single app experience. And on the top of that, if you look at our applications, APIs, those APIs were like pretty much like our traffic jams all the time. It faced with too many performance bottlenecks due to overloading of these APIs. There's another term which we use in our enterprise systems is called legacy. And the legacy is something which we always need to integrate, but nobody wants to touch it. It's known as a technical debt, pretty much. Apart from that, we also face the problem with the security integration, security access control integrations. It wasn't that straightforward. It was given to you a lock, and you have given multiple keys to lock the door. Same issues occur with all these items. Basically, ultimately, what it boils down to is time to market, developer productivity. Next problem here, which I would like to have a key attention, is basically a domain encroachment. So this problem is basically when we started looking at all these application challenges. Domain encroachment is something which is, you can think about is like, let's say you are trying to keep up one room of your house clean and organized, right? And the stuff from other room starts creeping into that room. Like some socks will come, shoes will start showing up, or some gluten-free cookies will start showing up, and then all of a sudden you hear a meltdown. Oh, who ate my cookies? That's exactly the same problem which we face when the domain encroachment is. Services and the entities started their crossing the boundaries of the domain. And they end up into the space where they don't belong, pretty much. So that's basically what created is basically if a tangled experience. And the tangled experience is you're trying to fix something and you end up fixing more. So that created even more complicated chaos situation, who is the owner and who is fixing it. And that also diminishes basically the single source of truth definition of your data. The picture on the left shows that we have a microservices, and microservices are integrated into our applications. Again, this is, I would call it as a spaghetti integration pattern. What we introduced is basically we started moving to the orchestrator. And orchestrator pattern is basically try to minimize the domain encroachment, and we started doing aggregation logic. And did we even really solve the problem here, right? Yeah. Let's hear from the Balwinder.
Yeah, so this is funny, right? So if you all can notice here, right? So everyone wants to build orchestrators, and that's a habit most of the developers and organizations have, where they want to take span of control, not necessarily the right architectural practices, right? So when we try to think about domain encroachment problem and try to clean up the house, we did adapt to orchestrators. But what happened next was people started building orchestrator for employee information. People started building orchestrator for inventory information. People started building orchestrator for transportation information. Everyone wants to build an orchestrator, right? That is the most funniest part, right? From platform to it has become orchestrator, right? Then is when I and Anil took up with folks like Joey and his team, and we started working with our internal organization platforms team to start adopting to GraphQL Federation. So this particular slide from Apollo really inspires me, right? Because when you start writing orchestrator, what exactly means? You are actually trying to stitch REST endpoints or individual graph, and then over the time, when this become monoliths, right, the stitching becomes pretty difficult, right? And it becomes uncontrollable, and that's what is the focus here, right? So let's keep going. Anil, you want to put more lights on what are the problems we got through this stitching? So that would be helpful.
So what we got into stitching basically, right? So once we started our putting together all the stitching logic on the orchestrator, we started facing some different problems. So it's basically, if I need to analyze this, think about a use case where you're ordering a furniture from online and you're trying to put down the furniture, and after a couple of hours you realize, oh, I'm missing some screws, and now nothing fits, right? So similarly, exact same problem we started facing when we started stitching and manual orchestration. Initially, it did work, but then eventually when we started doing more and more feature enhancements, we started doing a duct taping ultimately. And then it became pretty much difficult to scale and manage. What this has caused basically is like some new entities were born, new relationships also born on the stitching, which cannot be traced easily. So this manual orchestration has left us a system which cannot be scaled and cannot be traced, and it truly become a monolith. So how did we keep evolving and from the duct tape and the manual orchestration? Ultimately, the solution is it's a federated gateway. And Balvinder and I led a couple of started decoupling the domains and their services, and then we let each domain to handle their own entity and a service, so that we can have a strong, consistent subgraph which can be composed into a supergraph, and that supergraph would be consumed by the applications.
Perfect.
So while we are transitioning this process, I would like to bring in principles which we both agree on, is basically Zhamak-Dehghani's data mesh principles: domain ownership, data as a product, infrastructure as a service, and federated governance. Speaking of governance, I would like to bring one more thought process there, as governance is not an easy journey, first of all. Balvinder and I worked, strategized for a long time, and then we came up with this recipe which I want him to cover. But I would like to say something on that, is think about governance experience for us is pretty much you have given a referee, you are the referee in the soccer game, but you are not supposed to score the goal, but you need to make sure that everyone plays by the rule. Absolutely. Stay in their lane and no chaos. So let's hear how we did it, Balvinder, with the strategizing this.
Yeah. So over the past 2 days, you might have got inspired looking at several tools teams have built, right? Lot of updates to what GraphQL has offering and Apollo has offering, right? Brilliant, great. All of these things come into usage if you really know how to use, and most importantly, the second part, where to use and how to control your organization's culture so that they are actually putting the right practices. And that's what is governance for you. Our journey with the help of governance actually has helped us a lot, right? I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Not all 5 fingers are same. Like that, not every architect who uses GraphQL is going to use it in the same way, right? So let's talk a little about governance, right? No, taking this kind of ecosystem and then putting a federation gateway so that, this federation gateway is able to take a lot of graphs, and then the federation gateway becomes more powerful, and also able to take some REST endpoints or REST APIs, and then converting those REST APIs to be able to onboard it to GraphQL gateway. On the paper, it looks so simple, right? But the governance is the key. Governance makes this happen. And that's what we will talk a little more about governance now. This is as powerful as good as your governance is, right? So that means from this journey of manual orchestrator to going to federated GraphQL gateway is because of the great tooling which is provided by the company, by Apollo, by everyone. but also by governance, right? So what exactly is governance? So when I started the governance stewardship learning along with Anil, right, we started understanding how will we create roles in the organization. And this is inspired definitely by what Apollo has, but we had to customize things, right? So we need, like, a government is formed where you have different government roles, right? From president to vice president to people who are working in the administration, right? Think of governance also of that kind, right? Because eventually the people who have to do the work are everyone, not a single person, right? So if you look at from the governance philosophy, we thought of different roles. Initiative owners. Now basically initiative owners are the ones who really want to bring some capability into market so that associates or customers can benefit from, right? Gateway advocates, the people who are the experts of gateway. Domain owners, the one who actually owns the data and they work independently to keep expanding the domain for the needs for the organization, right? Super graph leads, the people who actually are experts in writing GraphQL, and they are also leads because you want to have good leadership, you want to have good isolation in terms of domain getting exploded, right? Similarly, SREs are important, and client developer advocates, the people, the developers or the employees who really are building that use cases to make some business outcome or business feature come live, right? So let's look at this scenario, and I'm pretty sure you'll love it if you need to concentrate on this for sure, right? So let's look at a scenario where someone comes to me, okay, and comes to Anil and says, hey, you have a super graph, big super graph, and you are basically telling that, GraphQL Federation exists and there's a lot of benefits to it. I have identified a use case and I really want to onboard that use case to this GraphQL Federation gateway, and then you help me out. That is what someone would come and tell, right? And this is very, very important, right? So basically, a domain owner and a client developer advocate met and they said that, hey, we are bringing this feature. Let's get started with Federation at Gateway. Now, what happens is those roles which I have described, those play a major role in this. Now, as soon as they identify they need this data, right, and they really feel that there is one gateway from where the data needs to come, they come to gateway advocates. That's my team, right? And they say, hey, please identify a new domain for me, or basically tell me what to do next, right? So if we figure out that that domain never existed on the supergraph, we tell them, hey, let's get the new domain. Right? If we figure out that the domain does exist, then it's a different way we handle it. Now let's look at what happens. So we figure out that this domain does not exist. This data has never come to the supergraph. Now we want to bring that supergraph data and then serve the customer use case, which is the one which client developer advocate has brought. So what we'll do, we'll iterate over candidate entities. Now very important, when you're building your supergraph, how you optimally put your entities on the supergraph is a decision which you don't take today. You take it for the lifetime of this particular Federation gateway or for your company's big data dictionary. So that's what we do in this process. Next thing is once we document these things, we try to review them and also open up for requests for comments and also submit it. Eventually, initiative owners, whoever is the initiative owners, they make a decision, hey, this is approved or maybe this is not approved. The time to build this and the way to build this is approved or not approved. Let's say if it is approved, then we go and implement the subgraph. Now, very important thing here is, what I have learned in my career is that you need to measure what you want to accomplish before you are building and then measuring it. And that's what this process is, right? So once we implement subgraph, of course, the next important thing in any organization is operational excellence, right? That's a must to do, right? And then someone is certifying that your operational excellence is good, which means you have enough observability. Second thing is, I don't know how many of you know what is operational excellence. Operational excellence is not building a dashboard and not putting alerts. Operational excellence is building a dashboard, putting alerts, but building something which can self-heal whenever there is a problem in the environment. And that's what is operational excellence for you. So we basically look into it with the help of these people. And then finally, if everything goes well, it goes for approvals, which means that it goes into a next stage. But let's say if there is a problem, right? When the operational excellence is not meeting your needs, right? So what do? You again send it back to SREs or you send it back to the implementers. If in case this cycle goes through well, what you do is you deploy it to production. That's how the journey of GraphQL should be. always. It's not about what tools are available, what features are available. It is also that the governance is very important. Now let's make another example, right? Where we figure out there's a deficient graph or there's a major use case where a new domain owner says, hey, I have identified a case where, I need to bring a new domain here. So what do we do? As gateway advocates, we again look at whether this domain really fits, and the domain encroachment problem which Anil has mentioned, right? Maybe that is something which we rely on, and then we figure out that, hey, you are trying to onboard a domain, you are not the domain owner, you are rejecting this, right? So let's not do duplication across systems, right? If the domain is really new domain, right, then we go through the same process of iterating candidate entities, going for RFCs, going for approval, implementing graph, onboarding and certifying in pre-prod, and then finally going to production environment. Now, this is a very, very critical formula if you are trying to implement GraphQL in your company. Now, let's talk a little about accelerating adoption, right? Now, many people have come here on the stage and spoken about, hey, we have this tool, that tool that is helping us out, right? Yeah, we also have some tools, right? I also want to brag a little about them, but not so much where I want to bore you with by showing you a lot of code there, right? So what does accelerating adoption means, right? The process of governance needs to be streamlined. The architectural practices needs to be incorporated. So we have some tools which helped us in this journey. We may go beyond this also to build some more tools, or we may take help of someone else to get us some tools, but tools are important. Now, what does it mean? Let's say we have identified that, hey, we need to build graphs, okay? Now, how do we build graphs quickly? Everyone needs to be a GraphQL expert, a Java GraphQL expert, Node.js GraphQL expert. Maybe someone isn't, right? So how do you help them, right? So we need to help people build GraphQL projects. So that's what it is. A GenAI based GraphQL subgraph generator where people don't worry much about the signature and the structure of the project. They just go and give information which they need. They just put schema information, and they just put information related to build configuration, they put information related to deployment configuration, they put information related to service and network configuration, because these all things are important to build APIs, right? And they just go and click on generate, and there is a project created for them. Now, project with boilerplate code, but also project with best practices, build configuration, and ready-made tests. They need to go and write what they need to write. They need to write business logic. Anil, can you cover one of the other tools?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, if you look at the other use cases which we had, is basically we had APIs which wants to stay REST, but we still need to integrate to our app. And we already specified that our super app has a requirement of supergraph, and all the services needs to sit behind the supergraph and subgraph. So how do we expose this existing legacy to GraphQL capability? So what we end up doing is basically we identified few applications which had a legacy, and that we need to have a capability to transform them into these REST APIs into GraphQL quicker than possible, right? So what we devise is a tool called, we call it as a GraphQL micro gateway builder. Again, this tool is built on, as we can see, it's like this tool, you have to specify your GraphQL REST endpoints. It generates it takes all the configurations related to the API, understands the schema, and it generates the build and deploy configurations, and that runs, and you provide the mesh configurations to run that as a sidecar, basically. And this artifact will automatically then convert your REST endpoint to a GraphQL endpoint. The idea behind this tool, as I said earlier, is like that 2 decades ago, there was a tool built called AppFuse. I'm pretty sure nobody must have heard of it. It's 2 decades old. But that time, there was a tool built by Matt Ribel who wanted to make a jumpstart web application. And with the auto wiring, all the build configuration, deploy configurations and everything, we attempted the same to get the developers to speed up, really helping our legacy API to push forward. And now, since we have these REST endpoints as well, automatically converted to a GraphQL, now everything turns the GraphQL for us.
Awesome. So let's get into what everyone wants to hear, more of GenAI, right? How can you use GenAI? Everyone came here, spoke about GenAI a lot. I don't have big stories to tell, but a simple application which saved hours of time for us, right? People came to us and they said, hey, tell me a query which I can use for my purpose. What does it mean? I said, go and set up a meeting, okay? Let's discuss what we need to do, right? We'll iterate over whatever you need. Then I thought, okay, maybe I build something and give it to them so that this is coming prepared better for the meeting. A graph which is so big, they don't know which query to use for their business use case, right? And I don't want to spend time sitting with them and saying them, hey, this is the query you use. Then they again talk to me, maybe not this, the other one. Or maybe not the other one, right? So what we have done is we build a GenAI-based GraphQL query recommender, which takes the total supergraph. And what it does is, it's a very simple tool where you choose the gateway, which is our gateway. And then you just, in your natural language, type and say that, hey, this is what I need. In this case, I just tell them, hey, give me a query which will give me name of an associate. And also, it gives me their time and attendance information, which is a punch information. Right? Now, beautifully, this runs against the graph, looks at the queries and tells, hey, use this query. That's all. Now, the guy who comes to, or the person who comes prepared in the meeting, he knows which query, right? So tell me, this has saved a lot of time for discoverability. And that's a very simple use case of GenAI, but very powerful in your organization. Every hour, every minute which you save of your employee, of your associate, is worth millions of dollars. If you calculate it on a grand scale over a year or over a month, right? So now, next important thing is tracing and provider and consumer. Now, what does it mean, right? So traceability is important. Let's say I am into a situation where quickly I need to troubleshoot something. And I also want to tell, hey, this is the weightage of my graph, my provider, my consumer, my query, right? So what we have done is we have built a small traceability tool where you can put consumer information, you can put query information, or even you can put provider information. So what does it mean here, right? Let's say I want to know quickly, hey, which consumer is accessing which query and which data provider is it related to it. You just type the consumer name and then it gives you that particular information. Similarly, this is one example is team here. Maybe I want to search the schedules, right? The same thing comes up. You click on this filter and then it tells, okay, schedule is the application and these are the queries and these are the data providers based on which he is dependent on. If you go back and see, you can also get the detailed query explanation here, which we do not want to show here. But the next thing is, let's say you want to find out the provider relationship. And the provider relationship is, I want to know the provider team, who all is accessing him, right? So very simple, it comes up. Very, very simple tools. On top of your super graph, you can actually build a lot of stuff, which will make and enable your development team, your organization to save hours. At the end of the day, it's all about saving hours, right? So the next important thing is, hey, someone says that hey, my data provider or my domain is being heavily leveraged, or these attributes are heavily leveraged, and I don't have answer to tell them quickly, is it really true what he's telling me, or is it really false? Or maybe I know how to get more insights into the graph, and it's all about graph, right? So let's look at this example where, we are trying to simplify this for this demonstration, right? These are all the providers on our graph, and again, the names are,
obfuscated.
Yeah. So you can see the bigger the bubble is bigger the domain provider, right? Which means that there are more consumers of this particular domain. And that's very, very important, because tomorrow, let's say you are getting ready for operational excellence. Where to invest more? Which domain to scale up more? Which domain is important in terms of complexity and investment, right? Similarly, there could be fields which each domain owner is providing, right? What is the weightage of these fields, right? This is very, very important to get to learn that, which of these will basically be leveraged more by more consumers, and also it can help you make a decision at a later point of time that a domain can be divided to subdomains, right? So this intelligence and some of the data insights are very, very important for you to be able to, better at your journey of APIs and GraphQL. Next important thing is benefits and development and enterprise. This is a typical development ergonomics, I can call it ergonomics here, where some of our use cases actually have this kind of benefit, where after we adopted to GraphQL and also to Federation, right, we have seen that we save some time. We save time in discovery, we save time in onboarding, we definitely save time in ensuring that we are able to improve consumer and client logic, and performance and dashboard test also we save time. Overall, for some of the use cases, we have seen up to 42% of total effort saving. And again, we are talking about saving some time, and time is money, right? And maybe Anil, you should speak about the next aspect of enterprise benefit.
Yep, sure. So who doesn't want to reduce the overhead, right? And making system run faster. The slides actually show the metrics which we originally get it from the Apollo, and I would say here is my thoughts is like some of our services, I would say we are closely aligned with these metrics. I'm not able to share the current exact metrics here yet, but the best part is basically, as we can see, the overhead is for our network overhead is minimal, and which is again we have a Swiss Army knife app which we always talk about, which is Me at Walmart, and that needs this capability, and this is driving. These metrics are pretty much driving our efficiency on that app. And finally, I would like to again thank you very much, Joey and the Apollo team, to inviting us to discuss our journey of Walmart and Me at how we able to achieve. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.